potentially many more flying objects than, I would say, commercial aircraft. And here again, we have, I say, some unique solution to enable these new technologies, these new services to come into life, and that's what we ambition for this new capital.
But that is, I mean, the new capital is a very, very big subject in Indonesia. It's a very, very exciting project. So what you're saying is there is, to coin a phrase, this incredible kind of blue sky thinking about what a modern 21st century city might look like if you have the opportunity, as it were, to build it from the bottom up.
Yeah, but probably we have already started to discuss again unique solutions as we start from scratch. One of them is what we call a digital wallet. So how you digitalize your identity. It's already, I would say, in play in some countries, not everywhere, by the way, also for data privacy reasons. But clearly, this could be the case here in Indonesia, so being a bit in advance compared to other countries. So potentially, you will be able to store in a smartphone your digital identity, the equivalent of your passport, of your ID card. Then you can get access very easily to civil service, to your bank accounts, to your diplomas if you want to get to university. So you could get rid of many paper documents and just use your smartphone to get identified, of course, in a very secure way.
I could tell you were looking for your phone then, just to see if you could hold it up and demonstrate the digital wallet. But that's a very good way of me starting my conversation with Sunarso as the chief executive of Bank Rakyat in Indonesia, which, as I said earlier, established in 1895, one of the oldest ASEAN banks, and a great supporter of micro and small businesses in Indonesia. So as we move to talk about this whole issue of digital transformation, if you could just set the scene about the kind of business landscape in Indonesia, the fact that there are so many small businesses and the challenges they face and you face as providing banking services for them.
Thank you very much, Edward. This is really interesting because we are just talking about the space and now down to microfinance.
Exactly.
Based on our experience among the three key subthemes, it is clear that the most relevant concern of Bank Rakyat Indonesia, especially in the context of our focus in serving micro and SMEs in Indonesia, especially in the context of our focus in serving micro and SME in Indonesia, revolve around digital transformation and innovative financing. Why? Because we all know that micro and SME is the backbone of Indonesian economy. This segment has over 64.2 million business entities, represent 99.9%, almost 100% of the total business entities in Indonesia. And the most important thing is they employ more than 117 million workers, or 97% of the total labor force is Indonesia. And micro and SME contribute to around 62% of the national economy or GDP. And for your info, that's Indonesian GDP as June 2023 grew 5.17% year on year, which is very, very impressive amid the uncertainty situation that we face today. On particular matter, Bank Rakyat Indonesia is one of the largest banks in Indonesia that has core competence to serve and empower micro and SME. We have been serving micro and SME for more than 120 years through our widespread network that consists of more than 15,000 outlets and 590,000 e-channels such as ATM and also EDC and also cash recycle machine. And also we have more than 100,000 employees who focus on serving this segment. However, serving micro and SME segment is not an easy task. we face high operational costs and also high operational risks due to our extensive infrastructure and human capital to serve them. In response to these challenges, BRI initiated an ongoing transformation journey that we call Revolution, since 2015, and that focuses on digital transformation and cultural transformation. Our digital transformation strategy involved two approaches. First, digitizing our internal business process to streamline process and boost overall efficiency. And the second, creating new business model to create new value, where we explore opportunities to create new revenue stream and value for our stakeholder, primarily our customer. To recap, in BRI perspective, we certainly think that the most relevant key sub-theme in the context of ASEAN and the Indo-Pacific are digital transformation and innovative financing, as BRI is in the strategic position in supporting the national economy and hopefully in ASEAN through focusly serving micro and SME. In terms of what we have done so far and the challenges we have been facing in terms of our digital transformation, I think we can discuss in the next Q&A. And now, time back to you, Edward.
Thank you very much, Sunarso. So what are the challenges you faced in terms of digital transformation? Because there has been an explosion of digital financial services in ASEAN, partly spurred by the pandemic, but also a huge opportunity to provide more services for more people. We talk about digital inclusion, and also reduce the costs of providing services to your customers.
Sorry?
You can reduce the costs of reducing services to your customers.
Yes, I think through digitalization of the internal business process, we can get efficiency in terms of operational costs and also operational risks.
Absolutely. Now, you said at the beginning that we'd gone from space and Patrice talking about satellites down to microfinance, and we're going to go from microfinance to big green finance. Marissa, as the Chief Sustainability Officer of Standard Chartered, but also with huge experience of raising money in capital markets, there's no one better to talk about the sort of financial underpinning of how you achieve this just transition, this green transition. There is a big finance gap between what is needed to be done in terms of the physical green infrastructure and how it's going to be paid for. Give us your perspective and Standard Chartered's perspective on that.
Sure. So I will actually slightly correct your opening comment on Standard Chartered. We're actually 160 years in the region, which we're very proud of. And we have...
I'm never one for detail. Always my undoing.
But what's really important about that is that we are, I think, the only global bank that has a footprint presence in every single one of the ASEAN countries. And how that matters and how that can be important to the mobilization of capital is that we, by virtue of this long history in the region, we deeply understand the cultures of our countries, and we can help but not only allow the market to appreciate the individual cultures, but also the shared ambition like net zero. And we can translate that into the attraction of capital to those global allocators. So that's on the one hand, is translating the vision and mission and why it's an investable proposition in the region to those global capital allocators at scale. The second thing that we can do is be the convener of the capital. So a perfect expression of that in this region are the Just Energy Transition Partnerships, where this was born out of COP26, where host governments from the West picked several high-growth developing market countries and partnered up to provide both capital and shared best practice and expertise and lessons learned to help decarbonize at a very holistic and systemic level these countries. And two of the JETP countries so happen to be ASEAN countries, and that's Indonesia and Vietnam. And the role that Standard Chartered has played is in collaboration with partner banks we've been able to circle matching private sector capital to that is being provided by the host governments. So in the case of Indonesia, 10 billion was committed, led by the US and Japan for the country, and we helped to circle a matching 10 billion. So a total of $20 billion of capital standing by ready to be deployed in the green future of Indonesia. And the same thing again in Vietnam, where we've also played a leading role in convening around 17 billion of capital. So that's a second role we play. A third role that we can play as a bank, and we do play, is to help actually structure the transactions. That's what we do best. We identify the projects, we figure out how to create the structure that will appeal to the market, but we can also identify gaps and crowd in other participants who can be additive to the equation, like concessionary capital that might take certain risks off the table to allow big capital to flow from the private sector. And then finally, I might just touch on innovation. You spoke about financial innovation. I think all of us on this panel have a bit of innovation in our blood somehow. And in the context of financial services, in order to solve climate change and attract the kind of capital that we're talking about and create that commercial proposition, we need new ways of thinking, we need new structures. And a perfect, again, example of that would be the carbon markets. We've been an active player in the idea that you can generate a credit that someone would want to buy, that you can monetize and then help pay for the cost of this transition. And if we apply that very specifically, getting even more innovative, we've taken the concept of the carbon markets and now we're applying them to trickier topics, like early decommissioning of coal, which is something that we would like to see happen in the ASEAN region. So what we're helping to structure now is the ability, as you decommission a high carbon emitting sector early, you can create a credit that then you can use to offset perhaps a carbon tax, or you could monetize. And we have been a shareholder and an architect of the CIS alongside other partners in Singapore, which is the carbon exchange, to create transparency, to create a liquid trading market for those credits to be bought and sold. Another application very, very relevant to Indonesia and Southeast Asia, natural capital is such an important component of mitigating climate change. We need healthy oceans, we need strong forests, they sequester carbon, and we need to protect them. Well, we can use financial engineering and financial innovation to think about ways in a private sector, for-profit way to invest in conservation and the natural environment. And that's an early and burgeoning field that we're quite active in. So lots of places, hopefully, that we can make a difference. And one final one, which is in the spirit of collaboration. For us to be able to galvanize this capital at scale, we need really good information and good data. If I'm going to commit to net zero and I'm going to be able to track the emissions that I'm financing, I need to go deep into my countries and my companies and my supply chains and be able to have confidence in those emissions that I'm tracking and reporting on. And I'm going to need partners like Microsoft who are using their data platforms to collaborate with us, in some cases to create things like a common good, a platform that others can use, and in other cases to help us in supply chain finance. We at Standard Chartered are also pioneering the concept of sustainable supply chain financing, where we're very happy to finance SMEs and other smaller companies that are component parts of the supply chain, so long as they commit to becoming more sustainable. And the only way we're going to be able to do that is easily providing data that's affordable and that is robust. So I'm giving you a gallop through some of the things that we're up to.
Yeah, no, it's a very comprehensive view, and you've knitted the panel very well together, although you haven't explained how you're going to finance flying taxis. Indonesia's new cabinet cities. But I think that
next panel.
It is fascinating because, of course, we forget, we always talk about, we tend to talk about kind of renewable energy. We don't talk about financing the nature of the financing conversation. I think Singapore has a carbon tax and thinking about carbon tax. But in terms of the money that you're deploying and ready to deploy, I mean, Indonesia has 180 coal-fired power stations. How realistic is it? I mean, to move at pace to decommission those, can it be driven by sustainable finance?
That's exactly what we're working on now. And well, we discussed a little bit, I referred to the idea of creating carbon credits as part of decommissioning. That's not the only solution. One of the beauties of the jet fees is that we are attracting concessionary capital that's willing to possibly step in where the private sector has a harder time. And so it's a combination, in the term of art we call blended finance, where you're taking different actors in the same project, structure, or ambition, bringing them together, and they each play a different role to try to create some positive outcomes. So I think a combination of a unique form of capital plus things like the technology around carbon credits can help us get there. But we also need governance to join us, to also say that perhaps we think differently.
In terms of deploying renewable energy, and you're pioneers in ASEAN and in Indonesia in deploying new technologies for renewable energy.
So thank you first of all for having me here and making this very important and interesting introduction about the UAE. And certainly the UAE is at the forefront of energy transition through their very ambitious energy strategy, which aim, of course, to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050 and cut carbon emissions by 40% by 2030. But companies like us, Masdar, which started in the UAE in 2006 and now become a global player advocating and investing energy capacity worldwide is in the range of 20 gigawatts. Yet we are targeting to make this 5 times bigger by 2030. So increasing our capacity from 20 gigawatt to 200 gigawatt in less than 7 years. And that's why you see our teams in different countries are very active and very keen in deploying more projects. Just to give context to the people, when we speak about increasing our capacity to 100 gigawatt by 2030, it means every week we have to develop 200 megawatts. This is bigger than the project we are developing here in Indonesia. And we are very proud to be the developer along our partners here in Indonesia of one of its kind projects here in Indonesia. It is a floating solar projects in the Cirata Dam. This is the largest solar floating projects here in the region. But why it is important? Because it solves for an issue of scarce land. We are in Indonesia here where it's not easy to find land to build solar power plants, which take huge areas, of course. But deploying such a solution where you can build a solar power plant floating on a dam means will unlock a lot of opportunities for Indonesia, but also for the countries here in ASEAN, and helping them in deploying, again, more renewable energy, in transitioning towards more cleaner energy sectors. And we as Masdar are committed to support all the ASEAN countries in taking the next steps. And we are happy to take risks as highlighted here and take it to the next step.
And so what is interesting about this is, first of all, do you find it easy to finance an innovative project like that? I mean, this is, in some respects, I don't want to put off any investors, but by definition, it's a risky project because it's a pioneering project. Is it easy to raise the money for it?
I mean, having partners like
Apparently it's
Standard Chartered, of course.
Marissa just writes the check.
Well, it is not easy, and it will require dialogue between all parties. It is a partnership. It's a private-public partnership, right? Will require from the government entities to change their policies, to provide what we call it a bankable environment or a bankable structure for us as developers to come and risk our equity, for us as developers to invite banks to put and leverage
And it was a compelling project for you, Marissa.
Yeah, we did it.
They do. We work a lot with them, of course. They help us in structuring the projects. They help us in deploying, of course, the fund for the project. So it is not easy, certainly. But once you get the first projects across the line, I think it becomes much easier.
Okay.
Because all the stakeholders get to learn how we can structure a project that tick all the boxes, make everyone have the confidence that this is the right investment, and this is, of course, the right investment for a good cause, but the right investment from legislation perspective, from economical perspective, and so on.
Okay, I want to come back to some of these themes, but I want to talk now to Ahmed Mazari, the president of Microsoft Asia. Obviously, Microsoft doesn't really need an introduction. Everybody knows what Microsoft does. Tell us about the work that you're doing in ASEAN, in Indonesia, in terms of digital transformation, which is the other part of this equation, the move to net zero, but also the move to a digital economy. Microsoft must be front and center of that.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you very much for the great introduction. Look, I'm trying to perhaps connect dots, and that may be
that's helpful.
Useful for us to do. You accurately pointed out to 180 coal-fired plants here, but equally, there's 120 million hectares of agricultural land here, which has the possibility to generate 28 billion tons of carbon credit. It's back to your point. Now, that would be humanly impossible to map. And so we're actually working with a startup here called Jejek using AI. And they've just started the journey. So they've absorbed about 14.5 million tons of carbon already. They've planted, I think, that I don't get accused of sharing the wrong data.
Marissa will tell you off.
About 10 million trees are in the queue as well. So what we're trying to drive is essentially enable enterprises, micro enterprises, to the point that was made earlier, in helping them have access to better data, have access to more agile data, and be able to do stuff that was, like I said, humanly impossible. How do you map 120 million hectares of agricultural land in the country? The other project that we're doing is in the space of water. And why am I talking about water? You know,
why are you talking about water?
We're talking about water because as a company, we consume a lot of fresh water. Yes. This morning there was an article in the FT about the fact that semiconductors manufacturers are struggling because of the hottest time in our planet. And the reservoirs in Taiwan are down to levels of 11%. What we're trying to do, so we've got two pledges here. First is, as a company, we have pledged to be water neutral, i.e. we will replenish as much clean water as we consume by 2030. Secondly, we're working with companies in ASEAN and Indonesia to essentially track fresh water and to enable their access to a wider population. So I tried to move away from technology and kind of give you examples of GPUs and CPUs, but rather focus on what we think is making progress in society.
Well, I think what is so interesting about what you said, having said Microsoft needs no introduction, of course, you don't think, I certainly as a consumer don't think of Microsoft as a data company, and you do actually knit the panel together, because as Marissa was saying, it's difficult for her to finance projects unless she has reliable data. You can supply data to Sonaso's clients, the micro businesses that need great data as well. But I want to develop some of the themes that have emerged from all of your remarks. And I want to return to Patrice, because you said something, not in passing, but you said something in your introduction which I found really interesting, which we haven't really talked about at the various events I've been to here, which is about creating high added value jobs. We talk, to a certain extent, some of these themes are quite abstract, the digital economy, sustainable investment. But what we also mean are new jobs for millions of people in ASEAN, but they're high-skilled jobs. What do you think the challenge is to train people and give people the opportunity to work in these new industries?
Well, it really depends on countries we speak. Let's take two extreme examples to illustrate or to try to answer your question. On one hand, you have, I would say, countries like the US, Europe, where we are clearly lacking engineers. And this is becoming a critical resource, if I may say, if we are not able in these countries to produce, quote unquote, more engineers. We will still need, I would say, low added value jobs, if I may say, quote unquote, but clearly the high added value ones, technicians, engineers, researchers, we face a huge, I would say, lack of these kind of resources as of today. At the other extreme, let's take India. India produces, again, quote unquote, between 1 million to 1.5 million engineers per year. It's potentially the largest reservoir in terms of engineers, which is, I would say, able to serve Indian needs or Indian companies, but as well many other tech companies in the world. That's why, by the way, either we rely on India in terms of engineering centers, or we, quote unquote, import, sorry to say so, talents from India to other countries. Now we need to rebalance things. So we need in each and every country to make sure that we produce enough, or we have enough, I would say, engineers, technicians, because we do have many added value jobs to fulfill. So for me, it's not a question of offer. The offering or the offers is there. It's a question really of having the right resources to meet all these required jobs, typically from tech industries.
But this is, I mean, what is the climate in ASEAN in terms of the skills opportunities? Because Ahmed, you must as well, you must be recruiting in Indonesia, in every country Microsoft operates in.
Yeah, that's a great question. We have approximately 35,000 employees across Asia, and our two big centers for software and research development between India and China. But we're equally investing in the skills of the people in the countries we operate in. So it might be a number that might jump out as a big one, but we have educated 21 million Indonesians in the last 3 years through the pandemic. We took a pledge globally of investing in skills because we believe the biggest impediment for progress and societal inclusion that we've spoken about will be skills and infrastructure. And in the skilling program, what we're trying to also connect is skill with jobs. So just in the month of July, we upskilled 950,000 people across the world in AI, of which 20,000 people have had jobs to the point that Patrice just made. The current challenge I think we're seeing as an industry, as somebody who is looking for employees, is the education system hasn't yet evolved to a point of skilling for contemporary needs. And I think that is the biggest change that we have to drive with governments and institutions.
I think it's a really interesting question because it's now a question, I think, in the 21st century of whether the education system can ever keep up with business. And it's long been my view that we need to accept there has to be a business and education partnership because there's no way a traditional school, in my view, can really, the technology that Microsoft uses changes every year, every 2 years, and so on. So it's an extremely difficult circle to square. But I just want to ask as well, Abdulaziz, and also Marissa, the other theme I think that's come out of your remarks is the sort of accumulated experience and knowledge. So I described your floating solar platform as potentially a risky project, but in a sense, this is a real win-win because you're providing advanced renewable technology in Indonesia. And when it works, as I'm sure it will, you will be able to, as it were, export that model around the world. And similarly, Marissa, every deal that Standard Chartered is doing is adding to the experience of financing these sustainable projects. So let's start with you, Abdulaziz, on that point.
First of all, let me assure you that it will work. Yes. In fact, I was on the site yesterday. It's a 3 hours drive from here, and we are just now starting our commissioning and testing to inaugurate the plant and start the commercial operation hopefully next month. So it will work, and certainly there are a lot of learning from such a project and from all the innovative projects which we have deployed across the globe. We invested in the first floating wind farm in the UK, for example. We invested in the first concentrated solar power projects in the UAE in a very dusty sort of region. We now deploying electrical storage batteries in Uzbekistan to support the grid and minimize the investment the government should do in the infrastructure related to the transmission lines and so on. And all of this is, of course, accumulated learning that, one, support those nations to unlock further opportunities, and also support us as a developer, right, to export such solution to other nations where they're facing a similar challenge. It also supports us into going to the next step. So now what is next after the floating, for example, solution for Indonesia? We started discussing cross-country projects where we generate in one country and we export the electricity and have the offtake happening in other country. And we believe that such solutions will solve, it will be a win-win for different nations, but will solve a lot of challenges that today are obstacles towards energy transition at specific countries. So knowledge is wealth, and a lot of companies struggle to quantify this, right? But it is really what keeping us going forward. Knowledge is what also make people and our clients confident to work with us and give us further opportunities to deliver new projects.
And Marissa, you're as it were, you're accumulating knowledge as well in terms of how one finances these projects. And to slightly broaden the point, it's important as well to have a strong regulatory environment here in ASEAN as well to make these investments sustainable.
So, touching on a couple of the last comments that were made. First of all, anytime we are financing a new industry or building an asset class, one always starts small, and the first deal is always very hard. You know, you don't know what you're doing because you've never done it before, and you're working your way through it, and you'll hit hurdles, and you knock them down, and you reach the next one, and you reach the next one. But when you get it over the line, then that is enormously valuable information that you replicate. And you not only replicate it, but you do it bigger next time. And to your skills point, the Chirata project is going to create 800 jobs, 800 new energy jobs. Linking that back to your question
about skills, yeah.
On skills, the inverse of that is the number of people that are employed in the coal industry. So as we seek to decommission coal, we are going to need to retrain those people in those jobs of the future. So we are very mindful as we're providing finance, and we talk about the notion of a just transition. The just bit is ensuring that we are creating these sustainable jobs for the future. So that's always at the back of our mind, thinking, how do we take humans and redeploy them just as we're redeploying capital from brown to green? We're doing the same thing on the job side. Final point I would make is to your question on government participation. The Chirata project is an example. We need to work in close partnership with the government. In some cases, we need to change laws because they don't provide for the type of structure that we need or the type of equity participation. In other cases, it might be facilitating a permitting process so that we can get through the system faster. You know, but these are all the things that you work through as you're working on a project. But the beautiful thing about ASEAN collaboration is not only we talk about replicating it and doing it bigger next time, we talk about using that as a model to bring to another country. And I think that's the power of this collection of countries because some of the starting points are very similar. Different nuances in each country, but the issues, whether it's coal dependency or what have you, are similar, or topography or those sorts of things, and that's shared value.
Yeah, I'm a politician, and I haven't really brought politics into this discussion. I'm not going to, but it is important to remember, and it's interesting coming from the UK. We have our own issues. The other FT article in the Financial Times today is about the water stress suffered by in the UK. So those of you who visit the UK regularly and see it raining all the time, actually, we have to invest in our infrastructure. And politics does get in the way. There's a vote in our parliament this week on whether to make it easier to build onshore wind farms. And it's a traditional political position in the UK to be opposed to onshore wind farms. So politics always, and your point, Marissa, is a really well-made point, because it's not laziness, as it were, that necessarily keeps 118 coal-fired power stations going, and it's not even necessarily the money it costs to decommission. There are real jobs in those industries, and you've got to make that human capital transition as well. I want to Sunaso whether if Sunaso is able to just comment on how you see, when Marissa talks about changing laws, the climate for starting small businesses in Indonesia, giving people the opportunity, as it were, to pursue their projects in a digital, in the digital environment you're creating.
I think this question is really relevant to what we have done to ensure wider financial access for underserved population, I think.
Yes.
You mean underserved population?
Yes.
It is very, very huge potential.
Exactly.
Yeah. They used to have limited access to financial services, especially from formal financial institutions. In 2019, ultra-micro segment comprised approximately 65 million micro-business units, of which around 14 million ultra-micro business have not had access to funding at all.
Exactly.
Either from formal or informal sources. Some of the factors that contribute to this situation, including unequal service coverage from the formal financial institution outlet, and the role of financial agent that was not yet optimized to provide financial services. Based on our internal research, ultra-micro customers usually familiar with digital platform, using their gadget, but they have limited knowledge of financial product platform, on financial product beyond saving account due to the low financial literacy. So I think the most important thing is how to increasing the level of literation of financial literation. They prefer banking via agent rather than digital banking model, and need a financial institution that is locally embedded can gain their trust. That's important. To respond to these challenges, we come up with hybrid bank strategy. So I think we come up with not through suddenly digital, fully digital, because I think everything we can do, I think should be in line with the microfinance journey. So we come up with hybrid bank strategy where combine the strength of our physical presence and digital capabilities. Our branch banking initiative, which involved more than 666,000 billing agents, we have billing agents, has generated transaction value of around 1,300 trillion rupiahs annually. And from this transaction, a fee-based income of 1.4 trillion rupiahs annually was generated. And the agent itself received 2 to 3 times the fee-based income as sharing fees. We also have been extending our reach to the underserved population through the formation of Ultra Micro Holding together with Pegadaian and BNM. Pegadaian is the largest pawn lender in Indonesia. I think the biggest pawn lender in the world, because nothing in the country, nothing pawn lender owned by state, I think, except in Indonesia. While PNM is one of the leaders of the group-based lending, since the formation of Ultra Micro Holding, we have disbursed loan to more than 36.1 million micro and ultra micro business, including 14.7 million underprivileged women who also receive empowerment program. We aim to have an impact on equitable access to finance, especially within the ultra micro segment, contributing to the national financial inclusion target of 90% by 2024. Yeah. We will continue to strengthen our position as one of the largest microfinance in the world, and hopefully can make impact to ASEAN region as well as to other countries. I think about the regulation, I think we can push together to make maybe certain regulation to support the financial literation, and also to support to strengthen the micro and SME business to support economic growth itself. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much indeed. Now, I'm not sure how much longer we have, because I was told it's 45 minutes, but our clock says an hour. But I just wanted to use the opportunity of this extra time to ask, as it were, the dinner party question. I'd like to ask each of our panelists, it's obviously about artificial intelligence, which we don't need to worry about, because Ahmed indicated that he's trained thousands of people in how to use artificial intelligence through Microsoft tools. But I want to start actually with Patrice, because he was talking to me about it in the green room before we came on. And, you know, running a company like Thales and cybersecurity and so on and digital identity, I'd love you to give a reflection, which is not necessarily specific to ASEAN or indeed Indonesia, on how artificial intelligence is going to change your business, as it were, in both ends, both in the products you offer and also the threats you're perceiving.
Well, indeed, AI has taken more and more importance in what we do in terms of products and services. Now, if I'm a bit provocative,
yes, that's what we like.
It's not anymore a revolution. It's already there. It poses, I would say, some key technical challenges when you embed AI in safety critical systems. Definitely. It may raise as well ethical questions, for sure. But technologically-wise, not very impressed. Not very impressed. And it's already, again, embarked or embedded in many of our products and solutions. For me, looking ahead, looking a bit further away, the next revolution will come from quantum technologies, what is called the second quantum revolution. The first one occurred 50 years ago. This is the use of lasers or atomic clock, for instance. Now the second quantum resolution is really coming. And if I explain it in simple terms, is how you use, I would say, the properties of the matter at individual particles like photons, atoms, and so on and so forth, typically to measure things in a much more accurate way. Quantum sensors. I'm not talking about quantum computers. We are not involved in this domain. We may use quantum computers when it will be really available for industries. But quantum sensors, for me, is really much more fascinating, as it is probably short-term, and it will allow us to increase the accuracy of sensors by a factor of, let's say, 100 or 1,000.
Well, hold it right there. So I've got to stop going to dinner parties and talking about artificial intelligence. And now when I want to show off, I'm going to talk about quantum sensors. And the first thing anyone at the dinner party is going to say is, well, what is the benefit of accurately measuring something 100,000th more accurately? Give an example.
Cancer.
Ah.
Cancer. You use...
So healthcare.
Yes, you use, I would say, the most advanced generation of MRI. It measures what it measures. Sorry for the sentence. It measures what it measures. Let's imagine that tomorrow you may measure something with 100 more accuracy. So you will detect things that the most advanced MRI cannot detect as of today.
Brilliant.
So you will be able to detect diseases that you just don't know, or diseases far more in advance compared to what you can detect as of today.
Brilliant. Okay, this is not the Patrice show, though, so we're going to get Ahmed look in, because you were nodding along. Quantum sensors, is that what we should be talking about now, or?
The topics in the program here about financial sustainability, digital opportunity.
I've gone off topic, and what I've gone for is one interesting idea from each of you. So he's set the bar very high with quantum sensors.
Yeah. I want to be more pragmatic here. I think about technology evolution as still a very linear progression. While it might sound as if we've gone through quantum. Quantum is still, a generation out. I wish we could predict it. But I think fundamentally we believe that AI could enable many aspects of life where we have deep capacity challenges in the world.
Yes.
Think about the notion of healthcare.
Absolutely.
275,000 mothers die at childbirth, right? And 2.7 million kids die before the age of 5 weeks. They're not even 5 weeks old. A lot of it is just the fact that our healthcare systems are deficient, they do not have the capacity, and therefore the ability to provide the right progress during the progress of pregnancy, to offer the right medical support. We believe AI will create immense capacity in the healthcare system. I'm not even going to cancer yet. I'm just still talking fundamentally. 5 million children, adults die of malaria. We're still trying to crack the code on how to find the right vaccine. AI could accelerate that. If you look at education, in Africa, the average attendance in schools by teachers is 3.5 days, limited by capacity and distances that people have to travel. Our thought is that we could get into a world where every student could have a bot which is on their phone or their tablet or their laptop. So I think the advantage is, we're still at the initial journey of exploring the possibilities. For it, skilling is important, we spoke about, but equally infrastructure is very critical. So in Indonesia, where we are now, we're bringing in a data center shortly. We announced it in 2021. It has the potential to create 60,000 jobs.
Back to the skills point, yeah.
Back to the skills point. So I think as we look at the journey and the opportunity, we are at this stage doing small proofs of concept. We are exploring opportunities in healthcare, education, creativity, business process, in banking. And we see the possibility of creating more financial inclusion and productivity in the economy. Just in Indonesia, we believe that it could unlock up to 250 billion over the next several years.
250 billion of additional productivity?
Of additional productivity through AI.
Wow, fantastic. Abdulaziz, you've already set the bar quite high with a floating solar farm. Are there any other particular kind of technology that you think is going to be transformative coming along?
Speaking about artificial intelligence in specific, I think it will support us in the operations of such a plant, right? It will allow us to have plants that are more reliable, more resilient. By analyzing data, you could, for example, predict failures ahead of time and then avoid those failures to happen. And that's not specific for the renewable energy, but for all the I would say energy technologies. AI certainly will...
It can also monitor energy usage. And so
exactly, you could even understand, forecast your, for example, sun radiation, wind, correlate this with the demand behavior of the consumers and come up with when really I should maximize or when I should sell my electricity, at what tariff should I bid my electricity in a power market, and so on. So data is power, and having the right algorithm that will allow you to utilize it in the right way certainly will make the feasibility of renewable energy even further, even better, I would say. Yeah.
Marissa, as the person who makes all of this tick by supporting all of these panelists with your financing skills, what's your take either on artificial intelligence or the innovative tech on the way?
Well, maybe they're interlinked, because an area that we just today, much like trying to solve cancer, that we really don't fundamentally understand in a robust enough way is interlinkages in the natural environment. So the biodiversity equation, fragile ecosystems, interdependencies. If you have one intervention over here, what does it do for the environment over there? I remember a world wherein the great solution to wean ourselves off fossil fuels was to go to ethanol. And we all jumped into ethanol as our fuel source. Planted corn, which is a monocrop, which supplanted other crops, was disastrous for biodiversity. And we learned from that, because we didn't really understand what the downstream effects were going to be. I think with some of this predictive AI, sensor technology will be much better able to understand, if you do something over here, what the effects are going to be over there. And we don't have a lot of time, because the loss of our natural capital is heading in an alarming pace. And if we can actually understand what are the interventions that in that 80-20 rule are going to make a difference, that would be a pretty exciting place. I do want to sound the note of caution. Maybe that's, and given that I work for a regulated entity, around the concerns that I have about AI and where it's headed is a little bit on privacy. As a regulated entity, we have a fiduciary obligation to protect the capital of those who deposit money with us, those whose identities are tied to the capital that we are lending against. And I certainly worry about these advances that can mimic humans and trick all of our systems and create fake humans and fake bank accounts and all these kinds of things. So that's the one place where, if there's something on my worry list, I think that's where I spend my time, on the negative side. But I don't want to end on a negative note, because I do think, on balance, I believe firmly in the power of human technology to solve big problems, and I'm sure we'll solve that one too, with the great minds on this panel.
Well, of course, we've got the London AI Summit at the beginning of November, where no doubt the Indonesian government will also be represented, where we talk about the guardrails for AI. And Sunarso, you know as well that AI and your work on digital inclusion, financial inclusion, is underpinning everything that supports the Indonesian economy going forward. And you've been very eloquent on the contribution that small businesses make to the Indonesian economy, and the huge difference you're making in providing financing for them. But it's been a fantastic panel. Thank you so much for covering a wide and slightly eclectic range of subjects, but which I think do all knit together in this focus on the green energy transition and the use of technology, digital and data to drive the dynamic economy of Indonesia, the dynamic region of ASEAN forward. Thank you as well to our wonderful audience for listening to this brilliant panel. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much to our moderator for wonderfully moderating this illuminating session. And thank you very much to all of our esteemed speakers for sharing their great insights, expertise, and time with all of us. And I hope everyone has gained incredible insights from them. And ladies and gentlemen, as we have come to the end of the first day of our session here today, I'd like to once again, on behalf of our organizers, extend our profound gratitude and sincere thanks to everyone for your participation and for your attendance here today. And as the week is still short, ladies and gentlemen, we will have the second day for us tomorrow, and we will be discussing an array of topics starting at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning on green infrastructure and resilient supply chain and sustainable and innovative financing and inclusive digital transformation and creative economy. We're going to be talking about an array of topics and present to you the great insights of world leaders and business leaders like today. And ladies and gentlemen, once again, let us give all of us here the biggest round of applause. Thank you so much, everyone, and we'll see you tomorrow bright and early at 9 a.m. Terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you.
State-owned enterprise that focuses on the MSME segment, BRI Digital Innovation continues to be carried out to facilitate customers in providing services to continue to give value to Indonesia.